good afternoon. My name is Kelly Starrett, and I am Senior Vice President and Head of Government Affairs at NOMAR. For those of you unfamiliar with government affairs, this is the kind of work that we do for you all the time, making sure that we know the latest and greatest on federal legislation, state laws, and local ordinances that are affecting everything that you are doing on a daily basis for your job and for your clients. So today we have a special guest with us, and we're going to go over some eviction things that you need to know. These are a lot of the calls that our government affairs team has asked on an almost daily basis. So we want to give you all the information that's going to help you be able to represent your clients in the best way possible. To start off, I want to go over a few things with the CARES Act, because we did get a few questions ahead of time about that. So as many of you know, the CARES Act has made some information available on properties that are now subject to an eviction moratorium. So which properties are those, and how on earth does that eviction moratorium work? So the CARES Act moratorium is a moratorium on initiating eviction proceedings and charging fees for late payment or non-payment of rent on a variety of multifamily housing. This includes all properties covered by the Violence Against Women Act, which includes all public housing, housing that receives housing choice vouchers or Section 8 rental assistance, or virtually all other housing assisted or supported by HUD or other federal agencies, including low-income tax credits. And so those are all subject to the moratorium. In addition, all properties that have a federally backed mortgage loan, which includes loans insured by HUD and loans held or securitized by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. These are also subject to the eviction moratorium. I did get some clarification from the National Association of Realtors. SBA loans are not considered mortgages and therefore should not be under these CARES Act restrictions. So for those of you wondering about that, that is information we have on SBA. However, all of those other properties I mentioned, anything with a federally backed mortgage, anything under the Violence Against Women Act, all subject to the eviction moratorium from the CARES Act. Now, how long does that run? That goes through July 25th of 2020. At that point, starting on July 25th, a housing provider may initiate eviction proceedings. However, this is a big key here because this is another question we received. The CARES Act says that a housing provider cannot require a tenant to vacate for 30 days after providing notice. So regardless of your lease provisions, if your property falls into this CARES Act moratorium, you have to give a notice to vacate, and it's for 30 days. So let's say that on July 25th, you want to go to the courthouse and file. The earliest date your tenant can be evicted is Monday, August 24th, 2020. So that should answer a couple of those questions. Is rent that accrues during the eviction moratorium forgiven? No. You still have to pay rent if you're a tenant. So you're prohibited from initiating the eviction proceedings or charging late fees for late payment or non-payment, but it does not forgive the rent during that period. If your tenant doesn't pay the full rent on time, can you send a late payment notice? Yes, but with some caveats. You cannot initiate the eviction proceedings, but it does not prohibit you from sending a notice that the rental payment is late or incomplete. Can tenants pay partial rent? These are things that you guys have to work out with your tenants. So this is going to be agreements on a case-by-case basis. If a tenant does not pay rent during the moratorium, when can you start to charge fees or penalties? So the CARES Act says that you cannot charge fees, penalties, or other charges to the tenant related to such non-payment of rent. So you can't charge these things during the moratorium. However, it does not say that you cannot start accruing those fees and charge them after the moratorium is over. It doesn't say you can, it does not say you can't. It is very unclear on that. Are you allowed to initiate eviction for cause? So this is not related to non-payment of rent. This is related to other parts of your lease agreement. Yes, you can initiate eviction for cause during the moratorium if you're in one of these subject properties. Also have received some questions on what if I have multiple units and one of the properties is covered by the moratorium, but not all of them. So for example, you have 8 units and one person there receives a Section 8 voucher, but no one else does. On that, you can still process evictions on the other 7 properties, but not the one with the person receiving Section 8. Now, if your hypothetical 8-plex property is subject to the CARES Act, if it's a federally backed mortgage, then you cannot evict anyone, okay? So there are a lot of caveats here. I do want to direct each one of you to visit the National Association's website, nar.realtor /coronavirus. They have some great information on eviction processes and the CARES Act. We will also be sure to send this information out in an email to all of you so that you can see the specifics. What I did just now is go through an FAQ document that they have put together with all of the details on the CARES Act and how that applies to evictions. So you can read all of that yourselves. If you still have questions, you can give me a call. You can send me an email. If I can't figure it out, I am happy to put you in touch with the folks at NAR who have done this research day in and day out, and they have all kinds of insight. They are the ones who, on a dime, were able to answer the question about SBA loans. There are some questions about road home funding. So does the road home get implicated in this CARES Act information? The road home was a state-run program, so it should not have any weight with a federally backed issue here. Now, the governor did put some more limitations on some things, so we're checking into that one as well. My gut says road home, not an issue here, but we are going to get that information. Louisiana Realtors is looking into that right now. If after all this is said and done, you do still have more burning questions on evictions, please reach out to me. Also tomorrow, conveniently, the Louisiana Realtors are hosting an eviction webinar as well. They have a state judge that's going to be a part of it, as in addition to some folks from Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. So you can get as much information, info overload on evictions as you would like between today and tomorrow. But with that, we're going to keep monitoring the chat box. So ground rules for those of you just joining us, we're going to keep everyone muted except for our speakers. If you have questions, please post them in the chat and we will be monitoring that throughout so that we can answer those questions for you. Any questions we can't answer, we will go research that and we'll let you know after the fact. So now we are going to turn things over to our guest speaker. We have a fantastic person with us today. Another little intro to the Government Affairs Department and what we do at NOMAR. I know so many of you are familiar with LARPAC. You've seen it on our dues billing. That is the Realtors Political Action Committee. We use the funds there to support candidates that we call Realtor Champions. These are the people who day in and day out know that you guys are the pulse of the community. You guys are out there helping people figure out where they want to live, where they want to sell, what they're going to do with their properties, and how to make a house a home in this great metro area. And our Realtor Champions know that when something's going on, they need to reach out to the realtors and get their feedback. And this particular Realtor Champion, Austin Badon, previously served in the legislature where he was a rock star for us in our issues. And now he is in Orleans Parish as the first city court clerk and was willing to reach out and host a webinar for a couple of hundred realtors to talk about eviction processes. If that isn't a Realtor Champion, I don't know who is. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Austin and let him speak to you all on what is going on in the courthouse. Austin, you there?
Thank you, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
Yep, they're all muted.
Oh, okay. Kelly, I just wanted to thank you so much for all your help and support with putting this on. And I want to thank everybody for all that you do. And I see where June is National Home Ownership Month. And so that's a big deal because I'm going through the process right now of selling a house and moving into a home that we purchased a couple of years ago, and we are redoing it. It's been rough, but you know it's going to be good when it's all said and done. And I know the value of realtors and what you do, and I really appreciate you for helping people to become first-time homeowners and get people into properties that they have a vested interest in. So with that said, I also have here with me is one of my top staff members, Betty Stewart, who's been in this office for a number of years. So if you have any questions, you could direct them to me or Betty as well. As Kelly mentioned, I am the clerk of First City Court, and part of what myself and what my staff does is we handle the evictions for the East Bank of Orleans Parish. We also handle small claims $5,000 or less, and civil cases, $25,000 or less, and on rare occasions, the appeals for traffic cameras. We are the administrative branch of First City Court, so we handle the filings, we handle the fees, and also assign to judges. Myself, I am not an attorney. My staff, we are prohibited from giving out legal advice. We don't even make any suggestions or say what we would do. But with that, we handle the evictions and we get that process started. We're located at 421 Loyola Avenue between Perdido and Poydras, room 201, second floor of the Civil Courthouse. It's the building right next to City Hall. And we have a great staff of 20 people who are here to serve. I was just on the call a little earlier, so the moratorium was supposed to end on June the 8th, where people could come back in and begin filing at 9 o'clock. And I'm told that the governor has now moved that back to the 26th of June, which is a Friday. So therefore, that means that the first day that people could come in would be 9 o'clock on June the 29th. It is subject to change, like it has been changed before. There's folks out there who want to make it concurrent with the Federal CARES Act, which is going to expire at this point right now on July 25th. But as of right now, you can do that. So you can evict people starting on the 26th of June if they are paying market rate and the landlord does not have a federally backed mortgage. So as Kelly eloquently mentioned earlier, if you have a federally backed mortgage, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or if someone has a voucher, you cannot evict them. And so, we have a process that's in place, the rule of possession, and also one of the other things that the judges have decided to do is implement an affidavit. Now, the affidavit is on the Orleans CDC website, but not everybody has a computer or, things to go onto the website, so we have copies here. If somebody does come in, we are not going to stop them and stop the process of filing for evictions. We're simply going to let them file. We're going to give them the affidavit. They must get it notarized, either, however they want to do it, they have to get it notarized, and it has to be returned to this office before the hearing is done and commences. So those are the things that we have in place. The affidavit simply says, it reiterates the CARES Act. It just simply says that the landlord is attesting that he or she does not have that federally backed mortgage, and they are not accepting rent or partial rent from a tenant who is accepting a federally backed voucher or something from HANA or something like that. So that's what it does, and you have to bring that back before the hearing is scheduled. So we're gearing up for June the 8th, but now that has been pushed back, and we have 4 outstanding judges who are ready and willing and able to hear this. Now, I will tell you that, this is virgin territory. We have not really encountered anything like this in our life, and the judges are going to have to make the decision as to how they're going to rule. I don't know how they're going to make their decision. They're going to have to take everything in. And nobody ever told any tenant that you do not have to pay your rent. Nobody said you don't have to pay your utilities. That has never been said. And what's going to happen is a lot of these tenants are going to get a nice bill when this is all said and done. Whether they can pay it or not is a different story. The judges are probably going to have to do some type of means assessment to basically set some guidelines as to how the tenants are going to pay. I don't think that many of these folks are going to have $4,000 or $5,000 just sitting around waiting to pay all at once. They're probably going to have to do some type of payment plan. And the other thing that we hear from tenants is I'm sorry, not from tenants, from landlords, is landlords are angry. They feel like they were left out of the Federal CARES Act. And in reading it, I have concerns about it as well for the landlords. And many landlords are very concerned that in the middle of the night, these tenants are going to disappear on them and go and get apartments other places. And, that's something that it has to be worked out. So that's where we are with it. I know that the CARES Act was a $2 trillion package. There's some aspects on it, like the PPE part, where the PPE is the Paycheck Protection Program. So Louisiana received $5,534,000. Obviously, I'm looking at the numbers, it appears that the largest states, based upon maybe population, receive more money. Just for example, California received $33 million. New York received $20 million. The real estate, the real estate sector, 79,784 loans were approved, and that totals $10,743,000. So money was allocated, and that's the PPE portion. That's the paper. If any of you need that, that's the Paycheck Protection Program. So with that said, some questions were given to me. Let's see, one I have, it says, if a tenant is on a month-to-month contract, can a 30-day notice be served informing of lease non-renewal if they receive a federal subsidy? And again, the way I read it, it would be not until July 25th with that 30-day notice, okay? The next question, Kelly, you want me to just go down these questions? Hello, Kelly?
Yep, that's fine. You can go down the list if you want.
Okay. If a property is under the Road Home Small Rental Program, is this considered a federally subsidized property even though a mortgage does not exist? Can you proceed with eviction for non-payment if a non-payment of rent? I've kind of did some checking on this, and on the website, on the Louisiana Housing Corporation website, it states that the small rental program is a federally funded program administered by the Louisiana Housing Corporation. Again, that's just doing some research. I'm not, an expert on this, so please don't take my words as the gospel, but that's simply what I've been able to find. The CARES Act addresses a moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent, but what about other lease violations or the end of the lease contract? Can those be processed beginning on June 8th? From what I've found and from what I've heard is other lease violations are not protected under the CARES Act. So my response to that would have to be yes, they can proceed for other lease violations. The next question is, if an owner decides to place a property on the market, can a tenant refuse to give access to potential purchasers? My interpretation of that is the tenant cannot refuse to give access. The CARES Act doesn't, from what I've seen and read, I don't see anything that says that a tenant has that kind of power to refuse access. And the last question I have is, I need clarification on the July 24th expiration date. If a tenant is in arrears and has a waiver of notice in their lease agreement, can we file for a court date on the 25th, or must we give a 30-day notice of intent to recover possession of the property? And the simple answer to that is yes, you must give a 30-day notice. With that said, if anybody has any questions or concerns, I'm glad to take questions. Again, I have a staff member here. If we don't know, I'm taking the questions down, and we could do some research and follow back up through Kelly.
Austin, I do see some questions in the chat box. So one of them is, when will the governor announce the June 26th date to extend evictions again?
I'm told that he is going to make the announcement tomorrow.
All right, so that's
He did
tomorrow.
a press conference today. However, that conference was mostly regarding the pending tropical storm.
Got it. Next question for you. Can the evictions be filed online instead of coming in person?
No, you must come and file in person. And we have discussed going to an online, filing process, but we have found that it has caused a massive amount of problems, and both for the tenant as well as for the landlord. And so we have outstanding staff here. So you have to come here and sit before one of my clerks and file that. And it's kind of, we've done it like that to ensure that we're providing the best service for both the tenant and the landlord. We've had landlords, for example, who have come in and they have placed the wrong address or the wrong unit number down. When you do that, the wrong tenant gets served. And the landlord has to start the process all over again and pay all over. So we try to alleviate some of those problems by having people come in and file.
Got it. Next question. If the property has no mortgage on it and they have proof of that, is a notarized certification still necessary?
Yes, the notarized certification is necessary with all eviction filings. And because that tells the judge basically just what you said, that it does not have a mortgage on it. And, if it turns out that it does, you sign that affidavit, and the judge has to make a decision because now you have a conflict.
And there has also been a question on where can they find that affidavit? Do you have it on your website?
Yes, the affidavit is on the website. It's www.orleanscdc, C as in cat, D as in dog, C as in cat.com, and it is on the website.
Great.
But we will also have copies here. I've directed my staff to have actual copies in here just in case somebody came in and, they forgot it or they didn't know about it. We have that here.
Got it. Now, we do have many commercial real estate agents on our call right now. Are there any special processes for commercials, or is it the same process with the affidavit? Anything specific to those kind of properties?
I understand it's the same process.
All right, same process for commercial.
When you go onto our website, the opening page, in red, it'll say Orleans Civil District Court and First and Second City Court COVID-19 orders. Right under that, it has in red all eviction and foreclosure filings, CARES Act required documentation. You just hit click here, which is right under that, and then you will see number 3 is the affidavit.
Awesome, thank you.
You're
Looking
welcome.
for more of these questions. Does this information apply to Jefferson, St. Bernard, or other parishes, or it's specific to Orleans?
No, this is specific to Orleans, and each parish could implement its own guidelines, but this is specific for Orleans.
All right, now the CARES Act does apply to everybody across the country, but the process that they're describing in the courthouse is just Orleans.
Right, that's what I was referring to. The CARES Act applies to everybody across the country, but like the affidavit here is only for Orleans. We can't make policy for other parishes.
Sure. And can you give out your office address one more time?
Yes. Okay, so we are located directly across the street from Dave and Buster's on Porter's and Loyola. It's 421 Loyola, and that's room 201, second floor. My office phone number is 504-407-0400. That's 504-407-0400. And right across the street on Loyola, between Perdido and Porter's, Catacorner to Dave and Buster's, there's some parking lots right there. And, you know, you could just pay a little bit and park right there and walk across the street. We have security, and everybody who enters the building is checked as far as their temperature, and they are asked some questions. And you are also required to bring a mask with you, as well as keep the mask on inside of the building. And obviously, I tell everybody this, obviously it's a courthouse, so no weapons, not even sharp objects, because you have to go through security.
That's a great reminder. And we have another question here. Can you revisit the topic of non-renewal? If the property is not protected by the CARES Act, can we ask a resident to leave by way of a non-renewal before the June 26th date?
You're talking about non-renewal of lease?
Correct. Non-renewal on a lease.
If they're not protected under the CARES Act, and they have no mortgage and no voucher, I don't want to say yes. I would have to check into that off the cuff. I would probably say, you know, without, again, practicing law, I would probably say you could, as long as it's not protected under the CARES Act.
Got it. Can we, here's a fun one. Can we snail mail eviction applications?
No.
Nope, have to appear in person.
In person, you have to come and sit with one of my my staff members here. You will probably sit with Miss Julia or Miss Paffine, and those are seasoned veterans, and they will get you in and out as quick as possible. They will ask you all of the right questions. That's Julia, who handles the evictions, and also intake person, Ms. Paffine. They will get you in and out as soon as possible. They will do their very best to make sure that you answer all of the questions appropriately, so you don't have any road bumps in the process.
Fantastic. All right, I'm looking through just to see if there are any more questions that we have missed.
Eviction 126. Oh, what I'm gonna let Ms. Betty tell you about the fees for evictions and other fees.
Great.
The fee in order to file your eviction is $126.50 to file here in First City Court, and to have it served through our constable's office is $60. So that's the total that you need when you come in. And we do take credit cards, checks, cash as means of payment.
All right, thank you. And there was also a question in here, and I don't think this is for you guys as much. How can I find out if my property has a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan? So the first thing you can do, easiest thing, is probably to contact your lender and find out who holds it. You can also go through knowyouroptions.com/loan lookup or freddiemac.com/mymortgage. And those should be able to help guide you through whether or not you are part of this CARES Act. Any other questions in the chat box?
And we've seen it. I mean, I've had personal phone calls from people who, you know, they were ready to evict people back in May 18th when this first was stated that we were going to open up, and people were asking about the CARES Act, and when they checked, they found out that they did have a federally backed mortgage. They didn't think they did, and you know, I had to break the bad news to them. I mentioned it earlier about the landlords. You know, landlords are pretty ticked off because there's not a whole lot in the CARES Act to protect them. You know, when this was done, I think the people in Washington, they did not want people to be evicted and be homeless or go and have to cohabitate with others and kind of like be on the hot seat with, you know, the COVID problem. But there wasn't a lot in there for the landlords, but the landlords still have, you know, their mortgages to pay. And I know it's been tough. I've heard about it from a lot of landlords, and I know that a lot of landlords are not going to be happy when they hear that the moratorium has been pushed back even further. And there's groups out there who are asking that it's pushed back all the way to August when the Federal CARES Act expires. So, you know, nothing surprises me. I would not be surprised if it's moved back even further.
I agree with you there. Okay, a couple more follow-ups. One on the fees. Is it $126.50 plus 60, or is it just the 126?
Well, it's 126 here in First City Court. And when you have it served, because you have to pay for the service thereof through our constable's office, then that's $60. So yes, it's plus that, but only $126.50 here.
Okay, thank you. And are other courts open if people want to file small claims?
Yes.
Yes, we are taking small claims and civil cases. And the difference between the two is small claims threshold is $5,000. The civil case threshold is $25,000. There are no appeals in the small claims. That's the difference.
All right, and then there's a final question that just came in, trying to get a little more clarification on it. One of our agents has a tenant that has threatened to kill her, and she has it on voicemail. Is it possible to evict before June 26th? That sounds to me like something that is not part of non-payment of rent, even though they have, so they also haven't paid rent since January. So how does that work? Any suggestions? I know you guys aren't lawyers, and I am not either, so it's sort of a best guess situation.
Well, I can tell you that that is a criminal complaint. So therefore, you know, we're on the civil side. That is a criminal complaint that needs to be addressed with, I'm not sure what parish they're in, but, you know, that needs to be addressed through law enforcement. And then the other portion about whether they can evict, that has nothing to do with, you know, non-payment of rent or anything like that. So, you know, I would probably say to go ahead and do the safe thing and file for an eviction, and the judge would have to decide at that point.
Okay. And then another one here. In New Orleans, if you were filing for eviction before COVID-19 and the current landlord can't even enter, what can they do?
So we had 106 cases that were pending before COVID-19. We've been able to speak with some of the landlords and clear some of those cases because, you know, since this whole pandemic started, the landlord and tenant might have came up with a payment plan, the tenant moved, the tenant might have paid. So those cases are getting top priority because they are the longest serving cases. And what was the other part about the question?
So if they were filing before and the landlord can't currently enter, what can they do?
Well, if they had filed it before the pandemic, then those are, like I mentioned, those are going to get priority. But you know, if they had that federally backed mortgage or a voucher, I would probably say that they're off limits right now.
Yeah, because really, if they haven't gone and appeared before the judge, they haven't had their court date, it's still, the actual tenant still has possession of the premises until whatever issue can be resolved. However, if they had already gone to court and a judgment had been rendered and the tenant still hasn't rendered the possession of the premises, then they're in the warrant stage. And unfortunately, we can't issue the warrant until court has resumed.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a curveball into this question you've been answering. It's for a commercial property.
Commercial property is a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little bit different.
I'd have to ask the judge on
I would probably say that they could file, and then a judge would have to make a decision as to whether she would sign it and allow it to go on. It's a little bit different. And I've had that call as well about a commercial property. They worked it out, but again, a judge would have to make a decision on that one. But they could still, you know, come in and mention that it is a commercial property, and because the CARES Act covers residential. So they could definitely come in and take their shot.
Okay. Man, the questions just keep on coming. Let's see here. So let's say you have a giant multifamily complex and they have multiple tenants not paying. Will they have to pay the $126.50 for each unit?
Yes, for each unit. They got to pay the $126.50 for the filing in First City Court, and then the $60 to the constable to go out and serve it to each individual unit. It's not like one lump sum for the entire multi-complex. You have to do it per unit.
All right. Can personal belongings be removed from a property not covered by the CARES Act if the eviction was filed and placed on the door of the house in March?
No, you actually have had to have gone to court already and had a judgment rendered. And then the warrant is the last step, which we have several of those pending. But if that individual has already paid for and gotten their warrant extended, then since we're back in the swing, the constable can go out and issue that warrant.
Explain the warrant process to them, just for anybody who may not be familiar with it.
Okay, the warrant is the last part of the eviction process. The landlord has that option to come in and apply for the warrant, which costs $20, in which to file and serve. Because it's all due to the constable. We just draft the paperwork for them. They'll go out and tag the notice of the warrant, which lets that tenant know that they have whatever the judge rendered as a period of time, be it 24, 48 hours, in which to vacate the premises. And if they feel the tenant fails to vacate the premises within that time allotment, then the landlord and the sheriff can come out together and watch the person move or remove their contents from the apartment or location.
The landlord has to contract with some other company. The constable or the sheriff is purely there for just to make sure there's no altercation or anything like that. Law enforcement, they're not going into the property and remove items. That's incumbent upon the landlord to have a crew out there to do that.
All right, I'm looking. I don't see any other big questions. Here's one. I don't know if you guys want to touch this one or not. If I have a tenant that has not paid since January and I have the ability to cut the power and water, can I do so?
No, you cannot.
There you go. That's an easy answer to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the other thing is, if you are a landlord, it is advised that you don't insinuate or offer any threats or anything like that to the tenant. We've had, I think, at least 3 temporary restraining orders against landlords who have tried to strong-arm some tenants, and the tenants are utilizing Southeast Legal Services as their backup. So, and those folks, that's what they do. So, you know, if you don't want to get into a court battle and the expense of attorneys and all of that, you know, that's something that you would have to decide. But the Southeast Louisiana Legal Services is siding on behalf of the tenants.
Thank you. Okay, we did get one more question. Can you kick someone out for smoking marijuana?
Well, you know, marijuana is an illegal substance and it is a criminal act. So therefore, I could, you know, just inform you that it's still a criminal act where you would have to reach out to your local law enforcement. I would dare say that that falls back on the initial thing that you mentioned, Kelly, about things that don't fall under the CARES Act. And again, you know, without practicing law, that's something that a judge would have to decide. But if it does not fall under the CARES Act, you probably have some type of leg to stand on.
And normally, landlords have had the experience of such prior to, within their lease, they'll have a clause, no illegal activity or what have you, or some verbiage, something similar to that, so that they could come in and file their eviction based on breach of their lease agreement.
Okay, thank you. And Austin, I have a question for you. I hate to put you on the spot with 150 people on the call. I have been recording this just in case you said it was okay. Is it okay if we share this recording of our webinar with our members?
Yes, it is. As you are recording, I've tried to be very careful about answering things that are out of my realm because, again, my staff and I, we only handle the administrative portion and we offer no legal advice. So with that said, we've tried to be very careful, and I don't have a problem with you sharing.
I appreciate that. So what we'll do, everybody, is we're gonna wrap this up here shortly. We've kept you all for almost an hour. We do appreciate the attendance. So we will make this recording available. We will also get an email put together to get out to all of you who registered and have attended today with the recording information, with a link to that affidavit so you can get directly to it, and with whatever answers we can get on all of your burning road home questions, since there are so many out there, who knew? And I will include with that as well the National Association of Realtors FAQ on the CARES Act and eviction moratorium so that you can get that information and see if it applies to you. Anything else that you think might help you in this process, feel free to give me a call, 504-274-0705. You can also email me, Kelly, Kelli, @nomar.org. If you have some information that I think, you know, I was talking to one participant about a commercial situation that is very specific, so I'm going to put her situation in touch with Austin's office and we'll see what we can work out there. Anything like that that you have, reach out to me. We'll put you in touch with the right folks. This is what we're here to do, guys. We're all, you know, working remotely and trying to make the best of a very strange situation. And now there's a tropical storm about to make it a little bit more bizarre for everybody. We are here to help. We are here all the time. Give us a call at Nomar, send us an email. Any way that we can help you guys navigate this new world of real estate in a pandemic, we are here to do so. Thank you all so much.
Hey, Kelly, I just wanted to mention again, thank you for putting this on and for Nomar. Really appreciate all of the support that Nomar has given me in my political career, and I will be there for you with whatever I can do in my new capacity as clerk of First City Court. Again, we have a staff that stands ready. We are here and serving the public between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. We close at 4 p.m., but our staff is here till 4:30, wrapping up the day and preparing for the next day. But between 9 and 4, we are open to the public. Again, it's room 201, and that's in the Civil Court Building, 421 Loyola, and the phone number is 504-407-0400. That's 407-0400. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Austin. And realtors, when you're thinking about those LARPAC contributions, know that they go to help out people just like Austin, keeping our Realtor Champions in office so that we can get you all the assistance you need. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.